All right, Nintendo, you've done it. You made a skeptical DK Oldhead proud. So, obviously, I just got done watching the Donkey Kong Bonanza Direct, where Nintendo went into much greater detail describing all the various selling points of their next big game for Switch 2. In my last video talking about Bonanza, I was also a bit mixed on the entire premise, and while making it, I thought I was in the clear minority with no idea how many others would share some of the same feelings. So I think it's safe to say this presentation had a lot to prove. My big point with that video, however, was that in spite of my initial hangups likely stemming from a necessary adjustment period to all these huge changes for the Donkey Kong series, I was left feeling cautiously optimistic knowing what kind of effort was going into this game. I just needed to see some more of it, and now that we have, I'm more than happy to admit perhaps my biggest takeaway from this direct was that it kind of elevated this game in my mind from a cool yet very much unproven Nintendo experiment to quite possibly the most important game Nintendo will release this year. I really just want to dig into everything piece by piece, so let's cut the preamble and get right into it by first addressing the odd rock in the room, shall we? Donkey Kong is seriously one of my favorite characters in Nintendo series of all time, and a big part of that stems from the worlds and additional characters Rare first brought to the table with that iconic pre-rendered art style. And so, now that Nintendo has presumably brought Donkey Kong back in-house, one of my bigger concerns was that this game might end up feeling like more of a sequel to Super Mario Odyssey than anything previously related to DK. And wouldn't you know, if anything, it's looking like this game could instead be a prequel of sorts, and I think I'm okay with that. For a lot of people, the inclusion of a young Pauline here was spoiled through leaks and thus wasn't the most surprising reveal, but what I'm most impressed by is how she's being leveraged to add just some more fruitful motivation to the story. We know that in addition to Donkey Kong's hunt for the golden bananas, Pauline's goal is, funnily enough, to reach the core of the planet to wish for a way back home. My guess, which I think is a pretty safe bet, is that Voidco wants to use Pauline's singing ability for something related to the planet core, and initially cursed her into Odd Rock here to keep her contained. And what I love about this is having her struggle with Voidco be the primary plot mechanism driving the story forward allows DK to remain true to his character. He kind of still gets to be the nonchalant, almost reluctant hero doofus he's always been, while potentially having his own room for character growth that isn't exactly forced upon him. He more than likely just stumbles into it. And look, as much as I love having Diddy atop his shoulder and that there are some concerns about the timeline of the series not making any sense with both Pauline's and Cranky's presence in this game, I just don't mind at all what they're attempting here for a bunch of reasons. More I'll get into in a bit. I've literally spent the past 2 months since this game's reveal deeply embedded in Donkey Kong and the development history behind the original Country games, and it's very much in line with the series for the lore to not hold up under any scrutiny. The lead designer on the original Country trilogy can literally be quoted saying, "Best not to think about it too much, I think." I'm fine with them pressing the reset button on some details as long as what they do with it is compelling. And it's obviously still early, but I really like the dynamic DK and Pauline have going here. It looks far more compelling than anything the Mario series has done in recent memory, so I'm definitely open to seeing what they're cooking here. Any additions to the plot of a Nintendo game, though, are typically inconsequential without good gameplay to support it. And with all due respect to the Nintendo staff presenting Bonanza for the first time at the Treehouse event, I think this Direct did a much better job getting me excited about all the new gameplay possibilities. Where the initial coverage seemed to prioritize getting people invested in the destruction at a very basic level with a heavy focus on digging, here we can better see how much depth there is to all the new mechanics and how fluid everything is going to feel in the actual flow of play. It certainly starts with the base movement considerations, and as an absolute fiend for the Country games, these shots of DK leaping quickly out of his role and blasting his way through the path ahead got me really excited. It's unclear if the player here is simply spamming the roll attack or not, but If rolling into small objects like this naturally increases DK's speed and prolongs his roll like it does in DKC, I'm certain this is going to be a ton of fun. The commentary also made a point about combining rolls with punches and jumps to mix things up. And if this is even more involved than what the accompanying footage is demonstrating, this tells me the base movement in conjunction with the destruction is embedded with that modern Nintendo expressive philosophy I crave from a game like this. It really supports my takeaway from the reveal in that the expression is the destruction. Am I still unsure about how much fun digging for collectibles on its own will be over the course of an entire playthrough? Yeah, definitely. But most signs here point to this type of playstyle being somewhat optional. Any opportunity to keep players engaged with the other aspects of the destruction mechanics are being emphasized here, specifically beating down enemies to uncover secrets. You can tear a chunk off an enemy, use it to destroy another, and then possibly unearth a secret in the ground beneath it. You can dig around everywhere if you want, but it seems equally viable to simply follow the level design, clues, and mapping tools in order to track down those important collectibles and not waste your time destroying everything. The additional X factor here is unquestionably these unhinged transformations, each with their own components facilitating faster destruction and traversal. I know they're not exactly animal buddies, but they are certainly the next best thing with much better implementation than, say, Donkey Kong 64's inclusion of the animal buddies. And perhaps most impressively, being able to swap at will seems to provide some incredible flow to the exploration. This is how you include unlockable moves in an expressive platformer. For as much as I love Banjo-Kazooie and DK64, for much of your run through those games, it can feel as if you're putting an incomplete moveset back together. And I don't think skilled players really want to deal with that here. In Bonanza, you're presumably starting out with a complete moveset that you're adding to over time. I'm also a little indifferent towards the skill tree and effects of the various outfits. I liked how outfits acted as purely a bonus in Odyssey, but if they go on to support different types of playstyles here in pursuit of that expressive philosophy, then its inclusion makes sense and is a better reward for consistently hunting collectibles than anything DK64 was after. It's very much a Nintendo solution to this problem. And if the ostrich is anything to go by, and the fact that there's certainly going to be a few more transformations the developers want to surprise us with, it's another gameplay function whose charming implementation is arguably a direct callback to the Donkey Kong series. I think that's where I want to end off here. There's still a lot of this game I haven't talked about. It is like super robust with crazy environments and all these weird new features, but there was another element to it all that really put a lot of my initial concerns to rest. Undoubtedly, the biggest of which immediately following this game's reveal was the history it might be erasing. It's not just Donkey Kong I love. It's Diddy Kong and Dixie and all the other Kongs and the animal buddies and the humor and these jungle-inspired worlds. Nintendo didn't create these things, and deep down, I knew it was unreasonable to expect them to carry over every last detail from these old games into their new project. Obviously, what I want is something new that still pays respect to the history of series past, something I didn't quite see enough of in its reveal. But in between all these wild new features, I started to see a lot of the love that could only come from a team that is abundantly familiar with the Donkey Kong I love. There are a lot of rumors going around regarding the nature of the development of this game. Everyone wants to know who is making this, and additionally, what this means for 3D Mario if the Super Mario Odyssey team is behind it. I say this as a disclaimer before sharing my own speculation, because it is ultimately all still rumors at this point. I need to stress that. But if this rumor is true, it could tell us a lot about the inner workings of Nintendo heading into this entire generation. I saw a comment, yes, a YouTube comment, from fellow creator Kiwi Talks. First of all, shout out to Kiwi Talks. I wouldn't be bringing this up if I didn't feel he had a lot of credibility, because if you've seen his channel, you'd understand he has a lot of knowledge and industry contacts he's established through his vast catalog of developer interviews, a great deal of which are with ex-Retro Studios developers that are intimately familiar with Donkey Kong. He says, Donkey Kong Bonanza is being developed by a new team that was spun off from the Odyssey team. There are a lot of younger devs in the Odyssey team that grew up playing the Donkey Kong Country games and wanted to make one. After Odyssey was done, Nintendo went on a hiring spree, and one team split off to make Donkey Kong, and the other is working on the next 3D Mario. Miyamoto has been wanting to bring Donkey Kong back in-house for a long time, and the time was right for it to happen. I've redacted a small part of this statement for the sake of potential spoilers, but if this is true, isn't this absolutely the best case scenario? I mean, just for the sake of Mario, it is very unusual for this studio to go so long without a new 3D Mario entry, especially after the mega hit that was Odyssey. And how else to better reward them than to allow them the chance to develop a new game they've always wanted to make? I see that here. As much as I would have loved to see that classic Rare take on this style of game with modern sensibilities, I think I have even more faith in a team responsible for one of my favorite games of the last generation, with their own adoration for what paved the way for them. Just look at some of these challenge levels. Diddy, Dixie, Cranky, and Rambi are all back. And while they may not be the stars here and even potentially complicate the story, I'm just so happy to see them, man. Call it wishful thinking, nostalgia farming, what have you, but I don't know. Between all these references, rumors, and really the essence of Donkey Kong portrayed in the actual gameplay, it's really starting to feel as if Donkey Kong Bonanza is bringing the series forward into a new era by marrying the old with the new with a new youthful flair Nintendo's old head developers may never have been that interested in applying for themselves, and I just can't stay jaded about that. And of course, I think there's a decent chance there might even be more here than meets the eye. I understand a lot of people are feeling fatigued with the open world sort of create your own fun era of Nintendo. We're definitely seeing a bit of that at the moment with Mario Kart World. I know it's dangerous to overhype things, don't get me wrong, but this game honestly seems tailor-made to follow the footsteps of Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey, potentially resting among them as one of the most important Nintendo games of the last decade. As a huge Donkey Kong fan, this game was always going to be a must-play for me at some point, but I'm honestly much more excited now than I ever was before. So well played, Nintendo. I was kind of torn, but now I'm pretty much sold on Donkey Kong Bonanza.
More than anything, I have this dream. Maybe if we get to the surface, you and me, we can make it more than a dream. We're breaking through, down to the core, no stopping us, not any get up, DK, inside the zone, I found the key,
Join the powerful Donkey Kong and the talented singer Pauline as they set out on an adventure to the fabled planet Core.
My own special power? DK!
Thanks for watching. If you want to see more Donkey Kong in the future, stick to this channel and give my main channel a look as well. I'm seriously cooking on a ton of stuff I hope to be putting out very soon. Thanks so much, as always, to my patrons for their support, including Julian Messmer, Questing Refuge, and Blacktooth Bob. I'll see you again soon.